It is a complete scam. Let's be clear about that. And he brought really a sham lawsuit, which it wasn't a legitimate settlement. You can't negotiate with yourself. You sue your own government. You're basically negotiating with a guy you put into office who was your personal attorney beforehand. And it's no surprise that they cut this deal, which is, I think, one of the most corrupt things a president can do. There's never been a president in the history of our country that would have ever even tried this. This is so outrageous. The fact that he's really the deal in here for him is the one that was the question you asked of the speaker. You know, basically no audits for his tax activities prior to the settlement. We know that he'd actually, from those returns, didn't pay taxes. We have Americans that pay their taxes every day. They don't get a blank check to do whatever they want and not have the IRS audit them. It's been estimated by some folks that when those audits are completed, the president may have to pay up to $100 million in back taxes. That's what this is about for the president. He's raiding the taxpayers through the slush fund. He's trying to get away from paying his taxes and having responsibility or accountability for the fact that he evaded taxes, which would possibly come out in the audit. Clearly, he's afraid of that. That's why he's doing what he's doing. But this is a sham, plain and simple.
You know, Michael Steele, when I worked at the White House, you could not go into your job into the White House. You would not be issued a security clearance, let alone a badge, if you had unpaid taxes. And so the fact that the president of the United States, we know from reports and his own things the president has said himself that he hasn't paid his taxes, yet he said the double standard is another reason why the American people are like, this is a bunch of BS.
So to your point, Simone and Senator, that process has not changed. My first government job was back in 1978, y'all. Right? And again, you had to come correct. You just couldn't show up with unpaid taxes, and you couldn't show up with any court things kind of hanging out there, which Donald Trump got a lot of those hanging out there. Right. So we know this is a hot mess. They know it's a hot mess. But here's the attitude of this administration. What you going to do about it? What you going to do about it? There's nothing. You can't stop me, right? You've got 5 lingering questions about Trump's anti-weaponization fund that was sort of put out there. And one of the things they noted was, before the demise of the fund, DOJ officials emphasized that they already enjoy authority to order payments of essentially unlimited amounts to settle lawsuits. That baseline authority hasn't gone away. So we can do what we want to do. Who's going to stop us? You've appropriated the money. We can spend it however we want. Folks, that's not how this works. That's not how the government works. That's not how it's laid out. So help us understand where they're coming from here.
Well, you're absolutely right. And if there is a settlement fund, which there is, that's when you have a legitimate settlement, actually where you have adverse parties that come together and you settle. There was no adverse party here. This was Donald Trump suing himself and having his lackeys saying, OK, we'll dip into the till of the taxpayers and create this slush fund. So the courts need to review that, but Congress needs to take action. We could take action now. We've got a reconciliation coming up, which allows us to put legislation. We're going to be offering that as my Democratic colleagues. Some of my Republican colleagues, to their credit, have been saying this is outrageous, this is a bridge too far, that they are not going to tolerate it. But now it's time to actually put votes up.
I was going to say, how are they going to vote?
This is the key. You know, it's nice to talk the talk, but we're going to make people actually take the vote to be on record. And that's where, you know, our founders always thought that we have checks and balances and that the Congress is a independent branch of government and actually the premier branch, according to our founders, that they would stand up to a president that's trying to assert power, and certainly a president that's engaged in such corrupt activities that should never be tolerated in this country. And, you know, the unfortunate thing is we don't necessarily have all the laws to constrain a president, because it was always believed that you would always have a president who would not openly flaunt the law, violate the law, be able to engage in that. And for the most part, we've been very lucky over our history. We haven't had it until now. Now we have a president who norms, laws, none of that matters to him. And as long as he has Republicans in Congress that refuse to stand up and exercise their constitutional responsibilities to provide a check on the executive, he can get away with it. So hopefully it won't happen this time. We're going to put everybody on the record.
So, Congressman, along those same lines, let's talk about the president's new pick for Director of National Intelligence, Bill Pulte, and what Senator Thom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, had to say about the merits of that pick.
I don't believe he's ever had a security clearance. He clearly has no experience in intelligence. He has no geopolitical experience, no international connections, the sorts of things you would look for. Whoever told the president to go ahead and commit to this publicly before vetting it should lose their jobs, because they should know that the math just works against Pulte being confirmed.
Someone could have told the president that.
What's that?
Someone could have told the president that, and it still happened.
That may be true, but then it's on the president.
Senator, forgive me because I did demote you to the lower chamber before I teed up that sound. But in addition to hearing from...
He did. He didn't even flinch, Alicia.
He took it with grace.
I'm a proud former House member as well, so I take it all in.
Past and present. I thought that was interesting. I thought what we heard in a statement from Senator McConnell was notable. This senator saying very few Senate confirmable positions come with statutory eligibility requirements. Anyone performing this role of such immense public trust must have the extensive national security experience required by statute, and no nominee who falls short of this requirement will earn my vote. The sense we've been getting, Senator, talking with your colleagues, is that the expectation is that this president knows that he doesn't have the votes in the Senate and is just going to, from now on, have acting heads of a variety of agencies. I wonder both if you agree with that analysis, and if that is the case, to your point about checks and balances, where that leaves the U.S. Senate in acting as a check on this president.
Yeah, it is a problem that you put in basically an acting director here. They can serve for a little over 200 days, and then you have to have a Senate confirmation. But there's a way to get around that, too. The rule is then if he were to nominate somebody that is then going through the process, basically Mr. Pulte could stay in that job. And who knows, he could put somebody up there that there's no way the Senate's going to take up. But because there's a nominee forward under the rules, he can stay there. And I certainly, I appreciate Senator Tillis's comments. This is a guy who has absolutely zero experience in one of the most important jobs that we have in the federal government at a time when we're in war and we're facing threats from terrorist threats that are very real. You expect to have an intelligence director who actually understands the job, has experience in the job, and can provide unbiased, qualified opinions and recommendations to the president. You're not getting that. And unfortunately, this appointment to this acting position really follows the pattern of what we've seen from this president, that he doesn't care about qualifications. He doesn't care about experience. The only thing he cares about is loyalty. Are you going to be 100% loyal to him? And that's not in the American interest to have somebody in this key position, director of intelligence, that needs to provide the kind of insight and expertise that a president needs to make sound decisions that protect us and keep us safe. To have an unqualified person, let's be clear, it makes America less safe and it puts people at risk in our country.